Begin.
All right, good afternoon. I'd like to call the May 29, 2025 University Governance and Operations Committee meeting to order. Suzanne, we have a quorum.
Yes, Chair.
Today,
Yeah, we do.
Thank you. Today we'll begin by briefly convening an executive session to discuss the sale of NAU real property and a multi-year employment contract for women's basketball head coach at U of A. Do I have a motion to enter into executive session?
So move.
Second. Thank you, Fred. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. The committee will now meet in executive session. Governance and Operations Committee meeting. Suzanne, we have a quorum.
Yes, Regent Goodyear, we have a quorum.
Please remember that only members of the committee can provide a second to a motion. Live stream of the public meeting is available to the public on youtube.com at the ABOR Live link. We have a very busy day ahead of us today, but before we get started, I'd like to recognize that we are joined today by Dr. Patricia Prelock, U of A's new provost. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Prelock. Would you like to say a few words? We'll put you on the spot.
Could I just do it right here? First of all, thank you so much. It's day 8. As I've told people, I'm very excited about working at the University of Arizona and have enjoyed meeting with faculty, staff, students, meeting the regents, and they put me on the spot right away today to be able to share some things about our UAGC program. So I have lots of thoughts and ideas, and I look forward to your guidance and support. So thank you for the opportunity.
Welcome. Cecilia, you want to?
Yeah. Sorry. Provost Prelock, welcome to Arizona. We look forward to working with you. I know that it's a very interesting time, and there's a lot to do. So President Garimella spoke very highly of you, and he has a great leadership. So thank you for everything you will do for us, and please feel free that we will be here, for you.
Thank you very much.
Today, we will start by reviewing a request from the University of Arizona for a multi-year women's basketball head coach agreement. Following that, the committee will review 3 business, finance, and capital items, beginning with a financial status report on fiscal year 2025 for the 3rd quarter, an overview of the 2026 annual budgets for the 3 universities, and a review of sale of real property located at 218 South Milton Road and 35 Pike Street in Flagstaff from NAU. Next, we will discuss 2 academic items from the University of Arizona. First is a review of a request to add 3-year degree pathways for the Doctor of Medicine programs, followed by a request to extend the current exceptions for UAGC policies for an additional year. The committee will also hear from the board office regarding proposed amendments to the TRIF policy and a proposed new policy on first readings. Lastly, we will hear from the board office and a guest from the Arizona Department of Transportation regarding a proposed new Regents Research Grant regarding inexperienced driver mitigation. Before moving on to our discussion items, we should approve the consent agenda. Items on the consent agenda include items 10 through 16. Does anyone have a conflict to declare on these items scheduled for consent? Hearing none, I move the committee forward to the board for approval items 10 through 16 listed on the consent agenda. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? It is sent to the full board. Our first item is a request for a multiple year employment agreement for Becky Burke as women's basketball head coach from U of A. Desiree Reed-Francois from U of A will introduce this item. She joins us virtually. Desiree, welcome. Please proceed.
Thank you very much, Chair Goodyear, members of the board, Executive Director Sampson. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today, and I apologize, I am not there in person. We are at Big 12 meetings here in Orlando, Florida. But I do thank you for your continued support. We respectfully request your approval of the multiple year employment agreement for Coach Becky Burke as our new head women's basketball coach. Very briefly, this hire represents a strategic investment in our program's future. Coach Burke is a builder. She has led multiple teams at every level, most recently guiding Buffalo University to a record 30 wins and a WNIT championship. Most importantly, Coach Burke is a leader. She's grounded in purpose, her passion for the student athlete development, her discipline, and her vision align closely with our institutional values. The proposed agreement is for 5 years and includes performance incentives tied to academic success and competitive excellence, ensuring we're aligned in both outcomes and approach. Coach Burke brings the energy, enthusiasm, experience, and character needed to lead our program in this new era. With your support today, we're excited to welcome Coach Burke and begin this we've already begun this next chapter. But thank you again for your consideration. And we're enthused about the trajectory of our basketball program.
Are there questions from the board? Seeing none, this is an action item. I move that the committee forward to the board for approval the University of Arizona's request for a multiple-year employment agreement for Becky Burke as women's basketball head coach as described in the executive summary. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion is sent to the full board. Thank you, Desiree.
Thank you, sir.
Our next item is a financial status report of fiscal year 2025 operating budgets for the 3 universities' third quarter. Brad Kendricks from the board office will introduce this item. University CFOs are also present to answer any questions. Brad, please proceed.
Clicker. Thank you, Chair. While we're waiting for the clicker to walk through some of these slides, there we go. I will remind you that board policy requires the universities to submit, and the board office produces quarterly reports that walk through some of the key actual metrics that need to be reflected in order to monitor the fiscal health of each of our organizations. So these reports include actual revenues and expenditures through each financial quarter, the forecasts for the upcoming year, both on revenues, expenditures, and cash on hand for the year that we are in, and then estimated balances and projections moving into the next cycle. So just to reframe or to repeat the context, I think we did this a couple meetings ago.
Ghost, you're there.
Next, please. So again, we have crossed the third quarter. So what we're focusing on now are the differences between what the universities had experienced and projected at the middle of the year to where we are now through the end of March. So what this is 3 quarters of the actual experience of the year, which then informs the forecasts for the end of the current year, which then helps to frame the assumptions and sort of velocity going into the next year, which our CFOs will actually be talking about next as we're heading into the budget cycle. So in quick summary, moving from Q3 to Q2 across all 3 universities, we saw generally positive trends, ever so slightly so. So things continue to move in the right direction. So between Q2 and 3, total revenue at ASU the forecast is up about 1% for the year. Same thing with expenditures. So roundabout break even in that regard. For both revenues and expenditures, we see 4% and 5% changes year over versus the original budget for the year. So again, in summary, things are slightly higher than what was expected at the beginning of the year, slightly higher than what we what we saw through the first half of the year, but still generally pointed in a positive direction, with days cash on hand staying consistent and well within the board's range. So for at ASU, that's 167 days. As we move to NAU, similar results where we're about 3% up on both revenues and expenditures between the original budget plan for this year and what's actually been experienced so far, with slightly positive revenue trends and essentially flat expenditures from the December cutoff until March. So again, fairly consistent with expectations thus far. And again, very strong cash on hand under those expectations. Then finally, we move to the University of Arizona, who again is seeing positive growth in revenue, especially compared to budget for the year, but generally consistent at 1% and flat in revenues and expenditures from quarter 2 to quarter 3. And the cash on hand for the year is holding constant at 76 days, which, as we know, is well below the expectation, but is consistent with the projections that the university has laid out and with their plan for recovering that number in future years. So here's a summary slide for your benefit, but as we have talked about, we are looking at generally positive trends, especially quarter over quarter. But for the year, we see not huge amounts, but generally negative, with a slight negative cash or a negative financial result on NAU's projection for the year. So that was fairly, and again, cash on hand summary. You can see the progression through the year of where it ended in previous years, where it's looking like this year, and all three of the universities are remaining relatively flat and consistent. So forecasts have been solid, progress has been as expected, and again, it's where we've targeted so far. So not a lot of new information to report here as it relates to, which I guess is a positive in the sense that it is stable and consistent. So then we will move from this to the next agenda item where we'll be, if there's no questions on these results, where we will be talking about what this means for the future.
Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
Okay, Mr. Chair, Brad. Is 76 going to be our low water mark at U of A? Obviously, we've been watching that one closely for the last year for obvious reasons. And I know we've projected a very healthy return at the end of the year to back to balance. So is it fair to assume that that number has now hit its bottom?
So from the perspective of what we've received from the university, and we can talk to John Moore, the CFO, about what their expectation is moving in, but the way that we've talked about this is that 76 is the low water mark in the sense that as long as that's the forecast that we will hit this year is the last year that they are expected to have greater expenditures than revenues. So if budgets break even, as they have been saying, their plan is for the next year, then you should not see meaningful reductions in cash on hand beyond that point. So the answer should be yes, but I would defer to the CFO.
Oh, he is here.
Hey, what?
You're good with that?
That'll be our low water mark.
Okay.
Regent Stein?
Yep, so, Chair, so following up on that's what I wanted to ask about is, as well as, what is the plan and when can we expect the U of A to have its days of cash on hand consistent with board policy?
Do you want to wait till I think I'm going to be at the table here in like 5 minutes.
Fine with me.
We'll answer that shortly.
Yeah.
Are there any other questions from the board? This agenda item is for discussion, does not require board action. Item 3 will be a discussion regarding the university's annual budgets as we prepare to receive their fiscal year 2026 budget proposals at the June board meeting. I will invite each of the CFOs to join us to provide an overview of the university's budget planning framework for this year, anticipating presentation of the university budgets at the board meeting. I'd like to invite Dr. Morgan Olson from ASU to come forward and help us begin the conversation. Dr. Olson?
Good afternoon. So I think what I would share with the board at this point is that we have a greater than normal amount of uncertainty with respect to next year's budget. I think we would anticipate our actual GAAP financial results that you saw on the screen a few moments ago to be pretty close to what happens when we record closing entries and report on, the end of fiscal year 2025. Next year, as the board is aware, there are a variety of forces that are creating additional uncertainty. A lot of it has to do with federal policy and proposed changes therein, some of it with respect to sponsored research activities, some of it with respect to student financial aid policies. In addition, discussions on policies around immigration are expected to have some impact on international students, and so we're working through all of those things now. As we sit here today, clearly the state budget deliberations are, still hanging in the balance. Very little information available on that at this point, and certainly not a final outcome. So, just a number of factors that create more than normal uncertainty. So what Arizona State University has been focusing on is more intensive than normal sort of scenario planning, and what happens in a particular set of circumstances. What's that scenario look like? What our responses might be to that. Those can range. There are a number of different scenarios that we're studying, and so we will, of course, be prepared to put a budget in front of the board. But I would say that given our current timelines, that probably a lot of those questions won't yet be answered. So scenario planning, contingency planning are sort of the order of the day. We're spending a lot of time on that within the institution. We think that there are certain revenue streams that may be challenged, that there's a significant possibility of that, and so we're working through all of those. And as you would probably expect under President Crow's leadership, a lot of what we're doing is thinking about, all right, well, with challenge comes opportunity. How do we be opportunistic, develop additional revenue streams, greater revenue streams that are presented by some of these circumstances? So working through all of those things, I would expect overall that next fiscal year, 2026, might be somewhat more challenging from a financial perspective than 2025 has been to date. But that's sort of the outline of what we're thinking about. That said, if you look at a variety of our financial indices, the university's in good position with a more than adequate number of days cash on hand, strong balance sheet strength. We recently had the two major credit rating agencies review the university's financials and maintain our existing very high credit ratings with a stable outlook. So we're pleased about that, and we'll just have to kind of work our way through some of these uncertainties as more information becomes revealed. So I will stop with that, but if there are specific questions that you would like me to answer, I'm happy to do so.
Other questions? That was brilliantly presented.
Apparently.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Olson.
Would you like me to remain or retreat?
No, you can retreat, and we'll let Bjorn Flugstedt come up.
Back there with my Diet Mountain Dew.
NAU.
All right, Regent Goodyear, members of the committee. NAU is approaching this upcoming year, very focused on all the uncertainty on the revenue streams. I think right now we do anticipate that the overall revenue will go down next year with all the uncertainty. Uncertainty whether it is coming from grants and contracts revenue or other revenue streams. The numbers that Brad had shown before really positioned this current year at about $735 million. I think next year will probably be likely in the $700 million range in terms of revenue, and we'll adjust our expenditures in accordance with that. One of the largest drivers is likely, but not for sure, things associated with sponsored projects. A lot of that will have a revenue impact, but then a corresponding expense impact on that side as well as we make adjustments on that side. Revenue positives, I would categorize as auxiliary revenue remains strong. We have a good, strong demand for our housing on campus. We're seeing demand from students to remain on campus as well as to return to campus after living off campus, attributing to good pricing and the availability, proximity to all the campus services that we provide. So I think that that will remain a good, strong point. As we showed in our operational and financial review, philanthropic revenue remains strong. Also expect that to see continued strength going into next year as well. So those two will be strong points on the revenue side. Expense side, we're really leaning into looking at where can we be more efficient, reduce expenditures, especially on the utility side. One of the things that we are looking at is making some investments to reduce utilities in our IT data center, which is our #1 building of energy usage across campus. So that is one thing that we are looking at for some one-time investments to lead to continued expense reductions on a go-forward basis. So that's overall. I would say that your liquidity in terms of days cash in hand will remain strong for next year, likely in the 165 to 170 range at this point in time. So let me stop there, see if there's any questions.
Are there questions for Bjorn? Regent Brewster?
Thank you, Chair Goodyear. I guess the question would be from a board perspective. How can we assist you as things are changing at a rapid rate going forward? And again, it'd be the same question I probably should have asked Dr. Olson. We'll, get the U of A here in just a second, but just, is the board in a position to do something to help you and your finance team kind of weather what's coming at us?
Great question, Regent Brewster. I would say that continue to advocate, whether it's at the state and or federal government for any opportunities on the revenue side, because that's really going to be something that is really critical to be able to support operations. Being able to share ideas that you might have, make connections, not only government, but broader community, corporate type connections as well. Continue to make those suggestions and connections, and then just be willing to, I would say, think about if there are certain policies that we, as the universities, look at and think might be beneficial on a shorter, or longer term. Be open to some input on the board policies. So those would be the three things that come to my mind.
Thank you.
Other questions for Bjorn? Thank you. We will see you back in just a few minutes. Next up is John Arnold from the University of Arizona.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's always a pleasure to be here. Morgan and Bjorn did a great job outlining the current environment for fiscal 26. I've told several groups now in all of my years of budgeting, I don't know that I've ever walked into a fiscal year with more unknowns than the fiscal year we're walking into right now. And so how do you budget for that? What approach should you have as you walk into a year like that? And when the president got here last October and we were starting the budget process, we laid out a number of principles, planning principles. Number one, of course, was a plan for a balanced budget in fiscal 26. And the way we've defined a balanced budget, and we're planning to do a deep dive with you in a couple of weeks, so I'm not going to get into all of that today, was to really build that around days cash on hand. Are we going to have available days cash on hand? Is that number going to go up in fiscal 26? And we will present a plan where that number goes up in fiscal 26. So there's a lot of unknowns coming into fiscal 26. So that was number one. Number two was to provide an appropriate recognition for our employees, and so we have built a compensation package into the upcoming fiscal 26 budget. Address other costs as necessary. Prioritize the academic mission of the university. We developed a plan of budget that we've released to our community that assumes a little over a 2% cut for our academic structure and about a 7+% cut for administrative structure. And then this one, as an important one, was recognized that the university is in a transition phase between, we're coming to the close of fiscal 25. In fiscal 25, we have added a new president, a new director of RII, or of research, a new provost, a new enrollment manager, and several other things, new chief of staff. I can look around the university and there is a lot of new ideas. In addition to that, there is a number of transitions going on in the higher education space nationally. So recognizing that fiscal 26 is a little bit of a transition year and we are budgeting and preparing things accordingly. Another principle that we laid out is to not overreact to rumors and projections. But put the university in a position to be able to react when we have facts on the ground. And so the last thing we want to do is walk into this fiscal year having overreacted or done things that ultimately we don't need to do from a budget cutting perspective. And so, but at the same time, we're creating and doing the scenario planning and developing contingencies, and additionally laying the infrastructure in place with strong budget tools where we will be able to react to changing circumstances as necessary. And then finally, a strong communication plan. We work very closely with university leadership, but we also need our university community to understand the circumstances that we're in, the potential risks and changes that are coming. And so we have carefully and consistently tried to communicate. What I've learned, having been down there for about 1.5 years now, is that you can never communicate enough, and so we're doing the best we can on that front. To get back to Regent Stein's question, how long will we be below the Regent's recommended, is that the right word, required, days cash on hand levels? So we're projecting 76 days for this year. Next year, we're going to project 77. And that's about the best we can do in these circumstances. We are preparing options to move that number up more quickly that we will review with you in the coming weeks. That's about a 70 days cash on hand gap. Every day is between $7 and $8 million, so you can calculate what it would take in additional cash reserves to get up to that level. But, other questions?
Regent Brewster?
Same question I posed to Bjorn, John. Just, again, from a board standpoint, your thoughts on the U of A and what we can do to engage with you and help you kind of get through turbulent times.
Thank you. Excellent question, and we appreciate the question very much, and the support. And I thought Bjorn gave a terrific answer in terms of advocacy, contacts, and relationships and ideas. And let me stress the ideas. Over this last year, the board has brought a number of potential proposals to the university. The relationship, the company that you brought in around athletics has been a terrific partner, and I just recently got their preliminary report, and it was fantastic, and we're going to be moving on a number of those items. So I think that kind of support. There are frustrations around certain ABOR policies, administrative policies that my guess haven't been revisited since the 1980s. And, so I'd love to continue to chat with the other universities about which of those policies should be addressed, that might give us a little bit more administrative flexibility.
Thank you.
Count on doing that.
Yes, sir.
That is something that we want to follow up on and take very seriously. We want to allow you to do your jobs. We do not want you to spend your time writing reports and doing things that just sit on the shelf, collect dust, and that no one pays attention to. So there are some people who say we should measure everything. That's nice if you're a gargantuan corporation, but if we are asking you to do things and they are unnecessary or duplicative, we would like your input as well as Bjorn's and Dr. Olson's on what clutter we can clear out of the way. So this observation is taken very seriously, and know that we will be following up with you.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that very much.
Other questions for John? This is a discussion item. It does not require board action. Next, we will review the sale of real property at 218 South Milton Road and 35 Mike's Pike Street in Flagstaff, including a waiver of ABOR policy requiring certain real property be sold at public auction for Northern Arizona University. Bjorn?
Chair Goodyear, members of the committee, NAU presents this item related to the sale of the Granny's property in Flagstaff to you. Over the past year, we've pursued a lease and/or sale. We have a signed letter of intent. At this point, the terms of the transaction are confidential until the purchase agreement is signed, but were shared with the committee in executive session. We do have 2 appraisals in hand over the past 2 months. This transaction would allow the sale to occur greater than those 2 appraisals. This particular property was purchased in 2018. It is not on the contiguous border on the Flagstaff campus, and have determined that this is the best approach for the university to be able to have some dollars come in, make some strategic investments, including some of the investments in the IT data center that I mentioned, to drive utility costs down, and to invest in our data network firewall, which we plan to do with the proceeds. So let me stop there, see if there's further questions.
Are there questions? Seeing none, I move that the committee forward to the board for approval NAU's request of the sale of real property located at 218 South Milton Road and 35 Mike's Pike Street in Flagstaff, including a waiver of ABOR policy requiring certain real property be sold at public auction as described in the executive summary. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? We'll send this to the full board. Thank you, Bjorn. The next item is a request from U of A to add a 3-year degree pathway for the MD programs at the College of Medicine Tucson and College of Medicine Phoenix. U of A's new provost, Dr. Patricia Prelock, and Chief of Staff, Dr. Francisco Garcia, will present this item. Welcome, and please proceed.
Mr. Chair, thank you for having us and having the opportunity to present on this agenda item. The provost and I will be tag teaming this. I want to acknowledge in the background Dr. Katie Bright and Dr. Kathleen Rundell from the College of Medicine Phoenix, as well as the College of Medicine Tucson, who are our academic leaders who have put together the proposal that you will be seeing before you. As the board has well recognized, we have an issue with medical student, the availability of primary care providers in this state. Having a hard time with the clicker.
There you go.
Oh, terrific. So, and ABOR's Arizona Healthy Tomorrow initiative recognize that. Arizona primary care workforce is a particular crisis to a certain extent. We are ranked 43rd as a state in terms of the number of primary care physicians. Today, if we were to come up to what are reasonable estimates for the number of primary care providers, that would require the production of 600 additional physicians. And that's just really hard to do on a dime. When we start thinking about the growth projections to the population, which are significant in the state, we really start getting at some serious numbers. Greater than 2,000 primary care providers are going to be needed by 2030 in order to keep up with the population growth. It's not a surprise to you that these distribution of these providers across the state is not even, and that there are many pockets where there is a particular dearth of primary care providers. And this specifically impacts tribal and rural communities, but really a lot of low-income communities across the state. Compounded on top of that is the fact that our health workforce is aging, and that greater than 25% of that workforce is now over the age of 65. That is the reason why the University of Arizona and its colleges of medicine have created what we believe are responsive 3-year pathways to primary care. Overall, the goal of the 3-year accelerated curriculum is to increase the number of primary care providers, but really underlying that is to improve the health outcomes for Arizonans living in rural and tribal communities. We think that this is a critical piece. I want you to understand that what is being proposed is not particularly novel in terms of the newness of this approach. There are 30 medical schools across the country that have 3-year pathways. Our 2 medical schools in the state of Arizona would be joining those. These are already modifications to the core and credit requirements that are approved by the Liaison Committee on Medical Education, which, as you know, is the accrediting entity for our colleges of medicine. The approach is a longitudinal curricular approach that really emphasizes one-on-one apprenticeship style mentoring. And there is very robust mentoring and coaching that's built into the existing model. These are competency-based learning models. It's really critical to emphasize that, because when people think about a 3-year versus a 4-year degree, the question might be, so what are these folks not going to be learning? So really the savings in terms of credits come in terms of the electives, very much like the 3-year undergraduate degree program, right, where you're cutting out a lot of the electives in order to earn the credential within a certain period of time. One of the unique pieces, and one of the pieces that we are most proud about, is the fact that these because of the way that these programs have emerged, that they are really designed to keep our trainees here in the state of Arizona. 3 years of undergraduate medical education, that 3 years medical school, paired with 3 years of residency programs, because we're in conversation with all these residency programs across the state, and then combined with a 3-year commitment to service in primary care communities in the state of Arizona. We believe that that's a powerful 3+3+3 combination. Because everybody is not necessarily at the same level of readiness, some folks may elect to transition to the 4-year program. And so there are off-ramps for those students who all of a sudden find themselves wanting to do a residency in plastics. Well, completing this 3-year curriculum would make you particularly competitive in plastics. So there are ways of moving you from 3 years to the traditional 4-year curriculum, should you decide at some point that that is the right thing to do. One of the really important pieces is that overall, this approach decreases the debt burden to the individual student. It does so in two ways. It does so because you pay about $70,000 less because you have one less year worth of tuition and fees to pay for, $70,000 to $80,000 less. The other piece here is that both institutions have dedicated scholarship dollars specifically in this primary care area with an idea that this is part of the investment that we are making for the future health of this community. So in terms of state impact, the proposed 3-year curriculum at the University of Arizona's Colleges of Medicine is innovative and addresses the unique needs of Arizona. If we do this right, we will increase the number of graduates practicing primary care throughout the state, increase the number of graduates practicing in rural and tribal communities, decrease the debt burden to our trainees who are in the primary care specialty area, but really improve the long-term population health, both in rural and tribal communities. And that's a real thing, and that's something that we'll be able to measure in the long term. I thank you for your attention and happy to take questions.
Are there questions or comments from anyone on the board? Fred?
Yes, sir.
Excuse me, Regent Duval.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah.
Chairman Goodyear. Thank you for this report. I want to do shout-outs to your team, Dr. Veras and Dr. Hillis, both of whom I've known for a long time and have been working with them. And I want to put this in a broader context. So, you know, as somebody who has been carrying a lot and speaking a lot to the Healthy Tomorrow Initiative, can't be more enthusiastic about the creativity, breadth, comprehensive thinking that's taking place around all of this. And I want to put this into context, and I also want to give a shout out to both Deans Abacasas and Wondersford for what they're doing in this space. We are actively pursuing College of Medicine expansions in both Tucson and Phoenix. We are actively discussing regional campuses, and I don't want to out them too fast, but at least 2 and possibly more locations. We are examining the potential of taking Global MD to a scale. I realize there's some issues around that, but that's on the template. I participated with Chad and some others in a full-day GME retreat that Drs. Hillis and Veras put on. And this, you'll recall, when the board had its retreat, we all said, gee, isn't the most important first step getting more GME capacity? And you guys have taken that on and identified ways to do that. And of course, that's essential for us to capture the talent that we're educating. So thank you for that. And then in this context, you're now bringing us the 3-year degree. So I just want to say, couldn't be more enthusiastic. I see this as an important component, but only one of the many components of part of the strategy in response to our initiative, and we're grateful for your doing so.
There were no questions in there, Regent Duval.
Did you like what I had to say?
Yes, we did.
Other questions or input? This is an action item. I move that the committee forward to the board for approval the University of Arizona's request to add 3-year degree pathways for the MD programs at the College of Medicine Tucson and College of Medicine Phoenix, as described in the executive summary. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? This will be forwarded to the full board. The next item is also from U of A. The request is to extend the current exceptions for the University of Arizona Global Campus to Chapter 2 Academic Policies and Chapter 6 Personnel of ABOR Policies for fiscal year 2025-26. Provost Prelock.
Thank you so much, Chair Goodyear, and it's a privilege and honor to be here. Thank you for the time. So while our University of Arizona Global Campus complies with almost all of the requirements in Chapter 2 and 6, there are some unresolved items that are primarily the result of ongoing uncertainty with the Department of Education's approval of the acquisition of UAGC, and of course, recent senior leadership transitions, as John Arnold talked about. So just to give you a little sense of the rationale, the Online Initiatives team and UAGC have done a full review of all chapters of the ABOR policy manual earlier this year to include chapters 2 and 6. And after that review, the 3 items that we submitted, general education, course numbering, and faculty transition, are the only non-compliant items. The effort by the team has been excellent. They've made really good progress, especially given all this uncertainty with the Department of Ed, and we're waiting for their approval. A 1-year extension will allow us sufficient time to properly coordinate with all their new university leaders, including myself, to finish resolving the remaining items for full compliance. Pending Department of Education action, we expect all items to be completed by FY26. So UAGC has completed self-studies of all of its academic programs. The waiver extension for Chapter 2 on academic policies is really allowing us to do a little more collaboration and review of academic programming with our main campus colleagues, both course numbering and working with our general education curriculum requires a collaboration across all entities. So it will really, the waiver extension for Chapter 2 will allow us time for implementation of the policy alignments in ways that we didn't really want to disrupt the current students' experience prior to the Department of Ed's approval. These are regarding changes to general education that ABOR has approved, but we're working with Greg Heilman, our VP for general education, so he can finalize the process on the U of A end for implementation in fall 26. That will keep from our students being not sure what they are supposed to be doing and the numbering and the general education requirements. And then the waiver extension for Chapter 6, Part B, will really allow me an opportunity to finalize this process with U of A, reviewing titles and faculty positions. Faculty have opinions about this, and so it's really important for me to hear that and make sure that we consider what the career track faculty positions will look like at U of A so that we can fully integrate our faculty at UAGC. So that's the rationale, and I'm happy to answer any questions. I also have Gary Packard here, who's my expert in UAGC, who's been giving me a brain dump about UAGC, and we're excited about the possibilities for truly integration in this online experience. Thank you.
So 1 year?
1 year.
Are there questions or comments from committee members? This is an action item. Thank you, Provost Prelock. I move that the committee forward to the board for approval the University of Arizona's request to extend the current exceptions for the UAGC campus, or UAGC to Chapter 2 academic policies and Chapter 6 personnel of ABOR policies for fiscal year 2025-26 as described in the executive summary. Is there a second? Someone?
Second.
Oh, thank you.
said second
All in
3
favor?
times.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, any abstentions? The motion will be
Can I
sent to
book
the
those
full
seconds
board.
for the future seconds?
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Our next discussion is a proposal of amendments to Policy 3-412, Administration of the Technology and Research Initiative Fund, TRIF, to the board on its first reading. Brad Kendricks will provide an overview.
Thank you, Chair. So as you all know, the board and the university system have access to Technology Research Initiative Funds, or TRIF funds, that are authorized in state statute. And in order to administer those funds, set priorities, distribute the funding to the universities, we have ABOR Policy 3-412. So we, in due diligence, go through these policies from time to time in order to make sure that they accurately reflect what's currently going on. And this policy needs a little bit of cleanup in order to reflect the board's most recent thinking on how this policy, or how these funds are distributed and the process that we've been following in recent years. So the language in front of you today outlines a clear description of that framework, which includes university-managed allocations of funding for research, workforce, and attainment programs, as well as a variety of regent-managed initiatives around statewide attainment, as well as community university research collaborations. So that's what's in front of you today. I will note that if approved by the board, our intention is to make a few modest adjustments to the policy as currently written in your materials. One of those adjustments is to provide some clarity in section C1 to add the words workforce and attainment, because that's an oversight in that section. Additionally, there were some numbering inconsistencies for sections D through H that will be corrected for the final version for board voting. And I stand for any questions.
Questions for Brad? This is an action item. I move that the committee forward to the board for first reading the revised policy 3-412, administration of the Technology and Research Initiative Fund as described in the executive summary. Is there a second?
Second.
All in
That was an
favor?
echo of a previous one.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? This will be sent to the full board. Also from the board office is a proposed new policy 1-126, collaborative initiatives to the board on first reading. Brad?
Thank you, Chair. So proposed policy 1-126 is a completely new block of policy language that we're moving forward. So the board office, on behalf of the universities as well as the board, interface in a bunch of different places in the community. And one of those places that adds a lot of value is the intersection between the universities and other educational and education-related entities. So that includes our partnerships with community colleges, that includes our partnerships with K-12, and a lot of the statewide coordination work depends upon good coordination with multiple partners statewide. So this is something that's ongoing. This is something that will continue to be ongoing. What we were looking for with this policy is to create a clearer set of framework within the board's policy language about how we keep track of, monitor, and give the board information on these topics to ensure that we're all perfectly clear about what our engagement is in these spaces and how successful they're being. So with that, I stand for any questions.
Questions for Brad? This is an action item. I move that the committee forward to the board for first reading the new proposed policy 1-126, collaborative initiatives, as described in the executive summary. Is there a second?
Second.
Add your chance.
I thought we were booking my previous one. I feel like you're changing the rules on me, like mid-committee meeting.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. Last on our agenda. What?
Motion carried.
Oh, the motion carries.
May I make a comment?
Oh, yes.
A correction for the record, there was a numbering inconsistency. It is policy, give me the number. 1-127, not 126.
Oh, that changes everything.
We will need a 6 second. So thank you. Just wanted to read that into the record.
What did we accidentally approve?
Yeah.
Let me tell you about 126.
All right. Last on our agenda, the board office asks the committee to review and recommend to the board for approval a Regents grant to evaluate and recommend technology-based interventions aimed at reducing crash risks among inexperienced drivers. This grant is in partnership with the Arizona Department of Transportation. For those who are unaware, Regents grants bring together Arizona public universities researchers and state government agencies to tackle pressing challenges facing the state. Funded through the TRIF fund, Regents grants engage researchers across disciplines and universities to address areas of the greatest need in Arizona. Today, I am very pleased to welcome Jennifer Toth, Director of the Arizona Department of Transportation, to share more about this opportunity and its potential impact. Director Toth, please proceed.
I must admit, I'm a little nervous. You make me feel like I'm back defending my master's project. But good afternoon, and thank you, Chairman Goodman, regents, leaders from the university, and the guests here today. I'm Jennifer Toth, Director for the Arizona Department of Transportation. I'm very pleased to be here in front of you today to talk about this item that is the consideration of the Regents Research Grant for the purpose of studying inexperienced driver mitigation. But before I discuss the grant, I do first want to thank the entire Board of Regents for the establishment of the Arizona Transportation Institute. This is the first time in the nation that 3 state universities have come together with the State Department of Transportation. The benefits to the state and the transportation industry have tremendous potential across the entire state. So thank you for making that possible. Now on to the grant. Anyone that has a child or a younger relative definitely knows the anxiety that arises when that person starts to drive. Instinctively, we worry about knowing those driving skills, which are they're built based on years of experience and the different scenarios that we encounter as we drive. So I can certainly relate to that worry. I sympathize with those anxious feelings as my children are in their 20s and 30s as well. So I know there's a real opportunity to make a difference with this particular demographic. And to do that, though, we need solid data along with tested safety measures designed to reduce those crashes involving inexperienced drivers. So this research study is going to allow us to get that. So let me tell you briefly what's planned. The study is going to move into 2 different stages. The first is going to define the primary characteristics of new drivers in Arizona with less than 5 years of driving experience and show how they correlate to those crash statistics. Right now, we know that drivers under the age of 25 are involved in about 18% fatalities and 23% of injury crashes on all public roads in Arizona. But inexperienced drivers are not always young drivers. So there's actually a common assumption in safety studies that people between the age of 16 and 24 years old are the ones with the most inexperience. But changing demographics and how we driving and changing driving habits also mean that there's many new drivers that are actually older than 25. So we want to find out what that lack of skill may contribute to that safety factor in inexperienced drivers for all ages. So an additional concern that this study is also going to address is related to the potential safety issues that arise with inexperienced drivers' misuse of becoming dependent on the technology. That's the safety features that we have in our driving our vehicles, that automation associated with that. So overall, phase 1 of the study will develop that more nuanced picture of the characteristics of inexperienced drivers in Arizona, and knowing that will help us better understand and plan for those risks faced by different groups. So the second phase of the study will then explore the best practices for state-level programs and policies that can reduce the crashes, the risk of crashes for those inexperienced drivers. It will also test the effectiveness of those mitigation strategies through the use of a survey and also driving simulator study. So the entire project, including both phases, is expected to take about 21 months with an estimated budget of about $280,000. So we expect the results that will allow us to put into place some new driver training and licensing programs, as well as some enforcement policies that can potentially reduce crash risk for inexperienced drivers. Help us understand that inexperienced drivers' interaction with automated systems and technology as well. So we're looking forward to partnering with faculty members of all 3 universities on this project and students from all 3 of the Arizona's public universities to safely connect people and empower the state's economy through transportation. Thank you so much for your consideration.
Thank you for the presentation. Are there questions for Director Toth? Regent Duvall?
No questions, being very chatty. Mr. Chair, sorry about that. But Madam Director, thank you for bringing us this opportunity. I mean, we we are in the service business with the state of Arizona. The state is our partner. We are your universities. We share the same constituency, and what you've described is exactly the kind of thing that we'd hoped would happen in this initiative. And Ken and Chad and the other team, thank you for bringing this along. I believe, could be off by 1 or 2, I think this is the 6th state agency that has now come to us. We've done multiple grants with others, so come back again. But I think you are the 6th state agency, along with firefighters, sheriffs, cities, counties, and a variety of other stakeholders in bringing us ideas for Regions grants. We have now hit over 200 media articles and radio citations regarding Regions grants. Some of them have gone national. The PFAS strategy around the firefighters' cancer risks is made national news. Word is that there's a very thoughtful op-ed in the Chronicle of Higher Education on this very topic in recent days.
It was brilliant.
It was absolutely compelling. But I want to thank you for it, but I also want to ask you to spread the word with your colleagues in the cabinet, because the goal of this is, Governor Ducey put the question to us, if I had a think tank, what would it do? And that's what the universities ought to be thinking about. And I think we found a tool to do that. And I hope that this will continue to proliferate and meet the success that it's had. And thank you for coming to us with this great idea.
Regent Pacheco.
Director Toth, I'd love to know more about your thesis.
I'm actually just completely kidding you. Constructability.
Any other questions? This is an action item. I move that the committee forward to the board for approval of fiscal year 2025 TRIF Regents Research Grant Recommendation, Inexperienced Driver Mitigation, as described in the executive summary. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? This will be sent to the full board. Thank you for your time, Director Toth. We are ahead of schedule. This concludes the University Governance and Operations Committee meeting. We will take a 5-minute break to allow Regent Brewster to gather his thoughts so that he may begin the Risk Committee session ahead of schedule.
Ahead of schedule.
Yes.
Thank you, Chair.
All right, 5-minute break.
Zoom call.